Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today is going to be so much fun because we're talking about things that are in both areas, your personal and your business life. And even better, I have two guests. I love it when I have two guests. It's so much fun. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Bader and Dr. Pearson to our program today. Welcome.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
It's good to be here, and thanks for the invite. Looking forward to it.
You know, we're going to have so much fun talking about this, and I'll be honest, it's a subject that we have never talked about before, so that's always great fun. But more importantly, it's a subject that I think many of the people who are fans of our program can relate to and have questions about. So now that I've teased everyone with that, let me tell people just a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into this. So, as I said, today's guests are Dr. Ellyn Bader and Dr. Peter Pearson, who have specialized in helping couples transform their relationships for over 30 years. Ellyn and Pete are co-founders of the Couples Institute in Silicon Valley, where they help entrepreneurial couples better understand and overcome the unique challenges of managing a business and a marriage simultaneously and successfully. Ellyn and Pete, now married for 36 years, bring both personal experience and clinical expertise to their clients through innovative programs and intensive workshops where they have guided thousands of couples to build lives they love with the ones they love. So again, Ellyn and Peter, welcome.
Thanks again,
Yeah,
Deb.
thank you.
Well, let's just jump right into this because, as I said, I think it is a subject that is absolutely fascinating. And it is the fact that, how do we work with those we love, especially our partners? A lot of times we have people who have hired their children, they've hired their relatives, all those various things. But it is a unique relationship when you are working with your spouse. So tell us, you have clinical practice, but tell us how it is that you decided to add entrepreneurship, that's a mouthful, and how to be successful at that in your practice.
It was probably a natural extension for us because being married and working together for as long as we have, when we got started, we would have loved to have found us. As we could have used, how do you keep your marriage strong and the business at the same time? And, one of the reasons it's so hard for people is that you have unique interdependencies when you're married. I mean, and it's not a hierarchical relationship. Most of us are used to being in relationships with teachers, with parents, with bosses, and all of a sudden, okay, here I am with somebody that I'm equal with. And what if we're not equal in the business? Or what if, so anyway, but I think it was for us a natural as we learned how to do it for ourselves. And we work in Silicon Valley and saw so many people in either startups or, and as the internet's grown a lot, there are more and more people working with their spouses in internet-based businesses as well.
Right. Yeah, because in many cases, they're now a home-based business. And so it's, it may have initially started out as one person, saying, hey, we're going to do this, and then evolved into, probably initially it was an informal, hey, I'm going to give you advice type of thing, or I'm going to ask your advice, or, can you help me with this, things like that. And then it may have evolved into a true formal partnership where you have they're being paid, they're getting salaries, they're if it's the type of organization where you have to list boards of directors, things like that. And so it is something that is a much more formal type of agreement.
And more complex.
Right.
By a lot.
Yeah. And I was talking to a new couple just yesterday, and he said, when we got married, we had no intentions to work together at all. I was in advertising in a very traditional advertising firm. She was in a psychology related thing. She eventually moved into doing more and more marketing, and I started doing more online promotion, and all of a sudden our worlds converged and we realized we should work together.
Well, and it's funny because many people, even though they think, ooh, they also think, ooh, and in some, I mean, they might really know this would not work. And that's okay, if they, but for many, it really is a good fit, and so, but as you say, it's complicated. I want that time away from my spouse is what I hear a lot of people say, or, oh my gosh, how can you work with them 24 hours a day? How do you have Thanksgiving without fighting, or, all these various things.
Well, I mean, the couples who get clear about their roles and responsibilities and what the boundaries are do better. Like one couple I talked to, they said, look, we have our own offices in the house, and when I put a little sign on the door, when I put that sign on the door, that means he doesn't come in.
Right.
So actually, Deb, what you're saying is that it requires a lot more discussion if you work together. It requires a lot more sophisticated communication when you work together and share a life because of all the interdependencies. So you have to you basically have to increase your communication skills to make it work.
By exponential numbers.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's interesting because, many companies have policies where even if you're dating someone, you can't work in the same department, the same area, things like that, because they realize that there are so many positives and negatives. Now granted, it's different when you're in a company because somebody could show favoritism or be seen as showing favoritism, or the opposite. I'm going to come down harder on you.
Well, what do you do if you break up and now you have to work next?
And
that's a little awkward.
And so but it does. It has evolved differently when it is your own business, and in many cases, probably they don't have employees, they may have employees, they may not, but it is interesting how that has evolved. And as you mentioned, communication is the absolute key. So do you recommend that people maybe even develop job descriptions and write things down?
You're on the right track, Deb.
Yeah. Absolutely, you're on the right track because, having clear roles, a role is a job description, and knowing what your job is and what, how you stay in your own lane, how each person stays in their own lane makes things go a lot better.
Well, and I'd imagine too that part of that is explaining to your customers, to your clients, that, those roles also. Because it's kind of like, well, if I don't like the answer Pete's going to give me, I'm going to go to Ellyn, and, or the kids, if I, dad tells me something, and I don't like it, I go to mom. Long ago when I was still in corporate America, we did this rather odd thing one time where we had co-presidents. Didn't work, and it really was, and it was two totally separate companies who merged. And so, and we knew what it was. It was, let's see who can win this battle and come out on top. I mean, and so what happened was the employees of one company still went to their former president, and the employees of the other company still went to theirs. And, and so we did have all this battle of wills, but it was also then there were times where it's like, well, who do we go to, or this one's handy, so I'm going to ask this person. And then it's like, well, no, that's not my role. And so it gets very complicated. So do you have to explain all of this to clients and customers also?
Well, so, I mean, we work out of a kind of a 6-step approach.
Okay.
So it might be good just to say what.
Yeah, let's go through those, which you call the Candor Solution.
Right.
And that's what you have in your practice.
Right. So basically the 6 steps are clarity about commitment. And we can talk more about that.
Mm-hmm.
Acknowledgement and appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
Negotiation skills that are specific for couples who work together.
Mm-hmm.
Making and using processes of decision making.
Mm-hmm.
Ownership, and clear roles and responsibilities. And so when couples can get all 6 of those taken care of, they have a very powerful foundation for successfully working together.
They are really, really creating a strong team when you can do all of those. And now here's a factoid, which most people never even think about because there's no reason to. That 2 horses pulling together can pull more than 3 times what 1 horse can pull alone.
Wow.
And however, if 2 horses are fighting with each other, then 1 horse is better off pulling by himself. But 2 horses can do 3 times the work as a team than 1 alone.
Right. So it's not double, it's 3 times.
It's 3 times. Yeah. Pretty interesting.
That is, and with people, it's obviously the same. We have these skills that complement each other, that enhance each other, all of those various things. But I'm guessing that, absolute key to all of this is that there's a good marriage to start with. I mean, if you're fighting in your marriage, being business partners is not going to be a good plan.
Listen, if you have a struggling marriage, being a business partner will just make it worse.
Right.
But however, I want to say,
there's always a however.
Well, so one of the things I've been really uniquely interested in is that, in Silicon Valley, venture capitalists as a group will say, we just don't invest or don't want to invest in couple-owned businesses. And
it seems risky.
It seems, risky. It's risky. So I've started interviewing successful couples who really work together and make it work really well. And one of them had an interesting story because they said, we were about to divorce. We had been apart for almost a year. We were getting ready to sign the divorce papers. And then we decided to do something rather radical, which was instead of divorcing, we said, okay, let's go completely 100% all in. Let's make a commitment not only to our marriage, but to our business, which they had not, they'd been kind of working together, but not really. We're going to go all in, and they did. And they said, not only the business has made our marriage terrific. And we are so happy now. And they were genuine. Like we are thriving in a way that we weren't when we weren't working together.
Interesting.
I think they're a little unusual, but
right. It's almost like they discovered how to better value maybe that person and what they could contribute, and then it extended to the marriage. It was kind of like, oh wow, you really are pretty smart.
Actually, what you just said, Deb, I don't know if you fully appreciate the wisdom that you gave with that quick observation.
It's the valuing.
It's valuing. When a couple is struggling, most of the time when they come in to see us, what they want is relief from the anguish, and relief in the form of my partner changes.
Right.
And
fix
they
them.
They both are into fix my partner, I will feel better, then we'll be okay.
Right.
However, the way to get above and beyond that is what you just said. There are 2 things that will pull people forward as a team. One is a serious crisis where they have to work together. Like, the fires in California, our house we could lose everything. We got to put aside our difference and deal with this crisis. And couples will often do that because there is a compelling crisis that organizes their skills, energies, and talents. That's number 1.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that will pull couples forward out of the morass of disagreeing and differences is to create a compelling future together, one that will excite their imagination, one that starts to say, here's how I can bring out the best in you and how you can bring out the best in me. Now they have, instead of a crisis, a compelling picture that will pull them forward. Often without that external pull forward, crisis or future that excites us, they will stay spinning around with finger pointing. So what you just said was, what we value together is bigger than my annoyances over what you do.
Right.
So you nailed it.
Yay! But that's obviously what's important, whether it's a business or a marriage, or obviously both, that you value, your partner, what they bring, all of their skills, all of those various things. And, it's tricky because, as you said, we don't have good communication. We get our feelings hurt, and that's why sometimes people are like, okay, I need a break from my spouse, and I need to go deal with, somebody else. I need to, and I'm sure you hear this all the time, that, my coworkers, my boss, they value me. And whereas my husband, my wife doesn't, and obviously they're going to use different words, but it's, they like going to work because those people make them feel important, smart, all those various things. And, and so clearly.
Just to underline, just to underline what you're saying, we were staying at a hotel in Romania a couple of weeks ago because we were doing a workshop there. And I asked the person behind the counter at the desk, because they look really eager to please, fresh, interested. And I said, do you like working here? She said, I really do. Said, why is that? Why do you like working here? And she said, because my manager listens to me.
Right.
Priceless, huh? I said, what do you mean listens to you? And if we have a problem, we will talk together about how to deal with it. And he respects what I think. I went, oh my gosh.
Right.
Now, how about this? What happens if you have that same philosophy on the home front with your spouse?
Right.
Now most bosses, business owners will say, yeah, you got to listen to your employees, But do you give the same respect to listen when a problem comes up in your marriage? Guess what? Not as often.
Right. Well, and so many times it ends up being kind of you take them for granted type of thing. We've been married 26 years. You guys have been married 36 years. And I think, and I realize that, I always think, did I remember to say thank you? And just simple things like that, that obviously help in your marriage. But in a work environment, when you're putting on that hat, you're always thinking, I need to make the other person feel valued. So I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to say please. I'm going to say, hey, that was a great job. And, and then isn't it really cool if that person is your spouse?
Well, you know what you just said is one of the 6 skills that we try to teach couples at work and at home. Now think about this. If you don't acknowledge or appreciate your best customers, over time,
they're gone.
They're gone. Well, guess what? In almost every distressed marriage that we see, one of the first casualties is the lack of acknowledgement and appreciation for what they do. And then the spouse starts to feel invisible or taken for granted.
Taken advantage of.
Taken advantage of. And Mother Teresa had a great quote, and she's probably the only person on the planet who could have made this quote. She said, there's a greater hunger in the world for love and appreciation than there is for bread. That just gets to how important it is. And so one of the first things we ask couples to do when they come in, whether they work together or not, is to every day for the next 2 weeks, say something that communicates to your partner that you love, value, respect, or appreciate them. And it could be like, maybe you even wash their car for them, bring them coffee in bed, say thank you for doing X.
Right.
And if you really want to add punch to giving your spouse appreciation, tell them why you like it. Not just say thanks for taking out the garbage. Say, guess what? When you take out the garbage and I don't have to remind you, I don't have to worry about nagging you. I don't have to worry, should I bring it up? I don't have, and then when you take it out without me asking you, I know that you're thinking about me because that's not your instinct to do till it's overflowing. So thank you for the initiative of taking out something simple like that.
Right.
Send a card, a text.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know, sticky notes, you know, leave a sticky note on their mirror, you know, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and another piece that's really great is when you acknowledge them in front of somebody else.
Oh,
It
yes.
doubles it. Oh, it doubles the effect. Give your spouse a stroke in front of other people. Oh my gosh.
Right. You know, and it's funny because a lot of times we do this either with people we work with or with children, you know, with your children. You put notes in their lunch boxes, all of those things. And again, it comes back to, we kind of assume that our spouse doesn't need that. They know they're appreciated. They know, you know, and granted, they might know it, but you feel good when you get that little thing. So won't they feel good also?
Well, I'm going to even add to what you're saying, which is yes. It not just helps your partner feel more appreciated, but the person who sends the message, you have to start organizing your perception about what you actually do appreciate instead of focusing on the annoyances. Oh, yet again, you left your socks, you know, can't you pick up the mail? I mean, But when you start giving your partner appreciation, you start to change your own psyche. And you then start to enlarge the perspective of your partner. So it's not just for them, it's for you as well.
Right. Yeah. When you're looking for positives, you will find more positives. You know, and if you're just waiting to pick, you're going to find anything to pick. You know.
Well, you know, and one of the things I think that makes it challenging when couples are actually in business together is that they're sharing control, and sometimes they're sharing control in very different ways. I mean, like one of the ways that we run our business is that there are certain areas of the business that I'm in control of. There's some that he's in control of, and there's some that we're equilaterally in control of. And so each of those requires different dynamics. And so, you know, for some people, it's hard to appreciate somebody who they feel is one up to them. And, you know, can you appreciate, okay, you really did this. You took it, you ran with it, you accomplished it. And can I really appreciate that you did that? Can you accept a compliment if you're in that one down position, or does it feel demeaning in some way?
Right.
And so you're really working out, not just complimenting, but complimenting in different dynamics of how you're complimenting each other.
Right. You know, and you mentioned demeaning. I mean, there's also sarcasm. And it's funny because my husband and I do that. You know, he'll say something and I'll just look at him and I'll say, tone. And he's like, what? And I'm like, to me, that came across as being sarcastic. And then I can tell by the look on his face if he either meant for it to be sarcastic, which then it could be funny. I mean, you know, or if he just didn't realize how he was saying it. And more importantly, I realize I do that too. You know, we give the flip answer, we give the, you know, oh, gee, thanks type of thing, when, you know, we really should say, oh, gee, thanks. You know, there's that tone just makes a little bit of difference.
Huge.
And the human brain is really tuned into auditory. So those, you know, just slight differences in tone can make a big difference.
Right. And then, of course, recognizing, ooh, I might not have heard it right. You know, I was expecting it to be sarcastic, so I heard it as sarcastic.
Spot on. Spot on.
Now, as we kind of said at the start, so many people say, how can I be with my partner 24 hours a day? We work together, we live together, we play together, all those various things. I mean, and some people are just absolutely fabulous at it. And I'm just in awe of them. Right.
Well, and let's just say that if you work together, you better not be together 24 hours.
Right. Yeah. So do you recommend that people have separate time?
Absolutely. Definitely.
Benjamin Disraeli said one time, he said, it destroys one's nerves to be amiable to the same person all the time, every day.
That's it. I like that.
Yes. So, I mean, so this is, again, some of the complexity of couples working together, because ideally each person does have their separate friendships, their separate activities, time away from each other. And that's true in work as well as at home.
Right.
So you're really navigating all those differences, and if you're working together all the time, and I go out for a business lunch or a personal lunch and you're home working, are you going to be okay with that?
Right. Yeah. You're not going to be going, and what were you doing?
Go ahead.
Right. Well, and obviously we have different personal traits that, if somebody's often in a different area, it's okay. But, say you have to share an office, and, now I like to have noise, TV, radio, something. And it's down low and see, and it's low enough that it's just it's white noise. Now I notice if I don't have it, but my husband needs silence. I mean, he wears earplugs.
Like graveyard silence.
Oh yeah. And that to me, oh no. I mean, there's just, and my brain just starts going 900 miles an hour. And so instead of a calming effect for me, total silence is the opposite. So that's part of that communication thing. It's like, you know what? You're messy. I'm neat. You're noisy. I'm not. We need to have two separate areas. And or even hours. Okay, you work morning, I work afternoon, whatever it is, because just recognizing those differences, that's okay, and knowing that you're not going to, as we were saying earlier, fix them. You're not, you can't force them to become neat.
Wait, would you say that again?
You can't force them to be neat. Now you can try. but yeah, I mean, and of course that's what we do. We try and force them, and if it's an employee, okay, you might be able to say you're going to.
Yeah, you got to leverage on them.
Yeah, but when it's a spouse, they're going to look at you and go, no.
The way I view it is that I have a higher tolerance for visual disarray than Ellyn does, but that's not how she would describe it.
In other words, you're not as tidy.
But I will tell you that one of the best decisions we ever made in our lives was when we decided that Pete's office was the farthest room in the back of the house upstairs. And he's got a beautiful office, but I never look in there. I don't even get to see it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's one of the things that when couples start working together or are working together, they need to realize, okay, it's not that we can't work together because we need two separate offices. No, it just means you need two separate offices.
Right. And you stop trying to change the core things in each other.
Right.
I was thinking one time we had for a substitution a husband and wife team. They worked together cleaning houses. And I was thinking, every day you work together cleaning houses and you go out to dinner. What do you say to your spouse? How was your day today?
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell do they talk about?
And I think that is one of the biggest things is, are there set boundaries? I mean, work is work, home is home. How do you tell? And obviously we're going to generalize because people can do both, and people can,
Right.
there are some that need. But how do you work with people on things like that?
Well, so I'll give you another example from a real couple who basically said, we love our work so much that it does intrude at home.
Right.
You know, we used to try to keep those boundaries. We can't keep them. But what we do is once a month, we go out to a hotel that's just down the street. We don't even drive. We walk to the hotel. And when we're in that hotel for 24 hours and whatever else we do around it, work is off limits.
It's a real boundary that they honor and they recognize is needed.
Well, it's kind of like parents having date night.
Yeah, I mean, we have kind of an interesting thing that we do because we do a working retreat once a year in Hawaii, where we go to Hawaii for about 2 weeks. And the way we structure our time when we're there is the mornings are for tennis or exercise or fun or beach or whatever. Even sometimes a little bit of the afternoon is. And we'll have our business meetings at night unless we're going out and doing something social. So, and it's like clearly delineated. So even though we're putting work and fun together, we have a process that we use that makes it easy to do it. And it's not a hassle or not a competition.
Right. Now, we don't turn our brains off. You might be having that fun time and still be thinking about, an issue that you've got at work. But and I think that's maybe one of the things people, they try and force it. We're not going to think about that. And I home office. I have boundaries. I tell my clients, here are the hours that I work. Does that mean I'm not checking email at 10 o'clock at night? No. But there's just ways that we work through all of these.
Yeah, I think it's always easier for people to find time for the work. The harder one actually is, how do we preserve time for the two of us, the couple?
And of course, that's absolutely critical. It can't be work all the time.
And there's also aspects of work that are like play. I mean, when we're brainstorming ideas on a topic, it's fun.
Energizing.
It's energizing. Yeah. So is that work? Well, not exactly.
And I suspect, Deb, that you do the same thing yourself. And you say, you know what, might be interesting if I did a podcast about ... Or here's some questions I really would like to ask somebody. And you could do that at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. or driving on, anytime. Like you say, that part of your brain is pretty well going on all the time.
Right. And when we're at work, we're also thinking about personal things. You're at work and you're thinking, what am I going to fix for dinner tonight? Or, all those various things. And I think maybe that's what we, especially if we're working with our spouse, we just have to remember there is going to be a blend. It's not right now is when we're working. Right now is when it's fun time. Right now is when, it's just your brain isn't wired to do that.
Yeah, when people believe that it matters to each of them, they can handle that flexibility so much better. When it gets into difficulty is when one partner feels like my partner doesn't care about any of the personal stuff. Yeah. And I'm always having to drag them or nag them to make some time that's not all focused on work.
Right. Now, one of the questions that I have, you talk about, I think about these things before interviews is what am I going to ask? One of the things that couples have the most difficulty with is money, and so how then does that transition with a business situation when, especially if it's, oh my gosh, this is, it's our business is 100% of our income. I mean, that's got to be complicated.
The risks and risk tolerance, big problem.
Can we divide that into two parts, though?
Sure, I know. I do that all the time. I squunch a whole bunch of things into one thing.
Well, no, but the fascinating thing to me is, every article you ever read says that couples fight about money. Okay. Now, I have seen thousands and thousands of couples in my day. So has he.
Right.
It is not one of the biggest things that
it's
couples
part
fight
of, or a symptom, or, things like that. But yeah, And it's funny because I always think about that. I'm like, no, I don't think it's, it might be that you're spending too much money, but it's okay. You're spending too much time out doing things or whatever. I mean, money's just that little part of it.
I mean, sometimes couples fight over
money
because somebody does go spend a whole bunch of money and not tell them, or
Right.
they don't have any kind of budget at all. But
Mhm.
but anyway, I mean, your question was still a really good question. It's just that
Let me
It's
just
really
underline-
not.
I just want to underline what Ellyn said. In our individual practices, we've seen thousands of couples.
Mhm.
We also do training of therapists around the world. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds in online training groups to be better couples therapists. Money is not a very common topic that they say, I have trouble with this couple because they're fighting about money. I think when it's said that money is in the top 3 or whatever that couples fight about, I think that's an urban legend.
And it's very easy to define that.
Yes.
Oh, this must be about money.
Right. And when people do fight about money, it's not about money because money, for the most part, is just a pie chart
Right.
for our goals, our values, our insecurities, our concerns.
Right.
So when people try to talk about a budget, they're really talking about a collision of values and
Right.
interests and priorities.
Right.
It's not how do we make a budget with money? No, it goes, that's why it's hard to, when people really fight about money, it's why it's hard to talk about money.
Right. Right. So when it's business, I mean, how does that, is it the same thing that it's really not money? It's more of something that's going on in the business, or, because
I mean, one of the big ones that I've seen in business is how much of our personal money is it okay to invest in the business? And is that really an equal decision? And when somebody takes a bunch of personal money, puts it into the business, and of course, if it doesn't go well,
Right.
yeah,
You're going to hear about that for a while.
Yeah, then
You bankrupt us.
yeah, exactly. Then you've got a big problem.
Right.
But otherwise, I've seen couples definitely take a bunch of time to figure out the budget for the year, or where are we going to prioritize the expenses and the money that we're spending in the business for a year. And that's part of good strategic planning.
Right.
So, I mean, they should be talking
Yeah,
about
you should be doing that no matter what.
Right. So it's more that just that, where's that overlap in our personal money versus our what is strictly business money.
Right. And yeah, again, that's especially if you are a home-based business, or, it doesn't even have to be a home-based business. If you're a small business owner or an entrepreneur, your accountant will say, you have business expenses and you have personal expenses, and those two should not cross. I still remember, when I was first setting up my business, oh gosh, it's been almost 25 years ago now. Holy cow. One of the best pieces of advice that I got, and clearly this was a good piece of advice since I still remember it. She said that my bank accounts had to be in separate banks. She said, pick one bank for your business, pick one bank for your personal. And she said, because it's much harder for you to be commingling and mixing up funds when they're in two separate areas. You get out the credit card, you see what the bank logo on it. Oh, this is my business credit card, whatever it is. And of course, that's just a good business tactic. Hello, then there's that little thing called the IRS. And so it's just good strategy. And so maybe it's even better that, that you start having those divisions that, okay, well, I have to spend this on business, or this is definitely a personal expense.
Your suggestion about having not just separate accounts at a bank, but different banks. I mean, that is a really good idea. So I hope people act on that.
Yeah. I mean, it really was, and it was somebody, I mean, this was, 25 years ago. She told me, she said, trust me. And she was not an accountant or anything. She said, but trust me, your accountant will love it. She said, it's just because even if you've got separate accounts in the same bank, especially now with how easy it is to transfer funds back and forth,
right.
She said, just keep them separate.
I've never heard anybody say that before. And it's interesting because we actually have 3 different banks. Mm-hmm. I mean, intuitively we've done it, mm-hmm. but I love it. I'm going to use that.
Well, and it's not that it complicates things, because I've had people who've said, well, it's like, no, to me, it makes it easier. Like I said, you're pulling out your credit card, which logo okay, this one is my business card. So yeah, it's just, to me, it's just always made life much easier. Now, have I commingled funds on occasion? Sure. But and it does get complicated. I mean, you go to the store and you need this and you need this, and okay, you're going to pay for it. We do that all the time. But yeah, it's just money is one of those things that it's a complicated thing, and especially when you're dealing with a business.
Yeah, absolutely. Another issue that I think is mm-hmm. interesting, as I've done more of the work with the entrepreneur couples, mm-hmm. is getting clear about what your commitment is.
Okay.
Because, when people are married and they say until death do us part, basically they're approaching their marriage as mm-hmm. we're in this for the long haul.
Right.
But a lot of times when people are starting a business mm-hmm. or they've been in it for a while, they don't stop and say, what is my commitment mm-hmm. to this business mm-hmm. really? Mm-hmm. And I've run into some interesting situations. One recently was a couple who said, okay, her commitment to the business was, I'm in it for the long haul. Mm-hmm. I'm all the way in it. And I really want our 2 sons to eventually take it over.
Ah, okay.
His was, I'm in the business for another 3 years and I plan to sell it.
Mm. Oh, boy, that couldn't be more different.
And they never talked about it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So he was making decisions based on his plans mm-hmm. that they would sell it mm-hmm. in about 3 to 4 years. She's making plans to
legacy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they had never even discussed it. Mm-hmm. So, all of a sudden, then you got to back way up and mm-hmm. say, okay, how we structure things, right. how we make decisions, mm-hmm. how we negotiate, mm-hmm. all of that, we got to get clear mm-hmm. about what is the commitment.
Right. Well, and of course, in that, the first discussion would be, I'm assuming, with the sons. Were they even interested? I mean, they might want absolutely no part of that. Well, then that's going to make it a totally different decision.
Yeah, no, I mean, she had talked to them and they were interested. So, but still, I mean, he wanted to retire. She mm-hmm. never wanted to retire.
Right.
So
mm-hmm.
that's going to put their retirement years into conflict mm-hmm. on the personal level mm-hmm. as well as the business level.
Right. And even, if and when the sons take over, was she still planning to kind of be part of it? And he was planning on, nope, I'm done. No email, no phone calls.
You got it. Exactly.
There it is.
That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's as you were saying. I mean, communication is absolutely critical, and just in our businesses in general, we should be having those thoughts. Is this a business that I want to be doing 20 years from now, or is it something that is much more short term? And clearly some of that depends on your age, and things like that. But we've reached the point in our lives, we're kind of at that age where we are thinking about what's going to happen when we retire. Heaven forbid somebody offer me a senior citizens discount. I get really annoyed at that. but it is kind of in there. And my husband is one of these when he works in corporate America. So when he retires, he's done. And I tell people I could be doing this for 30 more years.
Right.
But and now granted, I have the type of business where he can retire and I still can be doing what I do for 30 years. I mean, that works out. But yeah, if you haven't had that discussion with your business partner, who is also your life partner, holy schmoly.
But it'll be interesting with the 2 of you, because a lot of times when couples are like
mm-hmm.
the one who's retiring says, I want to go travel around the world a whole lot.
Right.
The other one is,
are you fixing me lunch? No, I'm not fixing you lunch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And see, you also are in the position where you can dial your involvement with work up or down. Mm-hmm. It's not, either or like when you're in a corporation. Mm-hmm. You have extraordinary flexibility about the when and the how much.
Right.
It's good news, but it also complicates it a bit too.
Oh yeah. I tell people, as long as I have internet, I'm good.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that in many ways makes it nice because I can still be working when we travel. And of course, that's one of the bugaboos that we hear from small business owners and entrepreneurs all the time is that we're working 24/7. We don't take vacations. And, so I have to watch that. When we're traveling, it's not, okay, I'm going to sit here but there are times where I'll tell my husband, but I need to do this. The people who are paying me money, we expect that I do this, but I also know, okay, we're on vacation, and so I need to put my phone away. I need to not get that out. And, but that's what's going to make it even more complicated when you are a married couple and you go on vacation. I mean, you mentioned, when you go to Hawaii, it is hard, and do you have the type of business where there can be a break? That's the other thing. I mean, some businesses can't, some businesses obviously can.
Well, we were in, a couple months ago, we were in the Gobi Desert in Mongolia for a couple of weeks.
There's no internet there.
And there is no internet. How did you know in the Gobi Desert that there was no internet? So we were, in a sense, the option was taken away from us. And it was really quite lovely.
Oh, yeah.
So your brain just makes an adjustment. Okay, why do I need to think about work? I can't do a darn thing about it. And so sometimes it gets forced on you, which is okay.
Right. Yeah. And illnesses happen, things like that. I had some pretty serious illness several years ago, and there were things that didn't get done. They couldn't, and my clients were good with it. They knew what had happened. They said, okay, fine. This radio program this podcast is a great example. They did the best of for a month because I was not able to be doing anything. It's, and I think what a lot of people need to remember is, if you were working for someone, what would you be doing? Would you be taking that break? Would you have, sick leave, all those various things? Well, when you're the boss, shouldn't you be doing the same?
Nope. No. No, I think I still have a drop of blood to give. So
I know. There's that turnip that we're squeezing that blood out of. Right. Well, and it is. I mean, that's what happens with so many small business owners and entrepreneurs is we do think that we're on 24/7. I tell people, I joke about this on my program frequently that, we work 28 hours a day.
Wow.
And that really is kind of what happens.
It gets worse. Business owners tend to be a little grandiose, like nobody can do it as well.
Nobody can do it. Yeah.
So it's only up to me to do it.
Right.
And they are quite reluctant to turn over the reins to somebody.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I've had several guests on recently where we have talked about delegating.
Oh, that's a four-letter word.
Yeah. And now, granted, depending on what your business is, there are some things that only you can do.
True.
But there's so many other things that you might very well be able to delegate. So then you can do more of what you do, or you can go and do fun things, or, all these various things. I've laughed over the fact that, I have a producer for this program. She's my virtual assistant. We're going on 3 years together. Holy schmoly. It's almost like a marriage, right? And delegating to her was difficult because I'm the only one that can do it. I'm the only one that can do it right. And good golly, not only does she do it, she does it better.
Oh, gasp.
Right.
I hope she's listening to this podcast.
I know she does. She's good. But then it comes when we're with our spouse, same thing. Can we ask them to help us cook, to help us do the laundry? Well, I don't know. I'm the only one that can do it. And then heaven forbid it's a business situation.
Or sometimes Ellyn is, sometimes she'll give me directions about what to do. And that's sometimes it could be called a little bossy or controlling. And so I'll say to Ellyn, okay, Ellyn, tell you what, you can tell me what to do. You can tell me when to do it. You can tell me how to do it. Pick two.
Right. that. Right. But, it comes back to that communication thing.
Totally.
And obviously we joke about this, but it is that, and when you're a business partner with your spouse, it's like we say, you have to have a job description. Okay. Who is going to do X? Who's, okay, well, you're good at this, or you volunteered for it, or, I hate doing it or whatever, but your responsibility is this, and because the second we assume, that's when either it doesn't get done, it gets double done, we both do it, right? And all those things. So it's, it's the whole communication thing. And I'm guessing that that's probably the biggest reason why things are not successful, is lack of communication.
And well, a question that I often ask couples is, were you ever able to cook a meal together successfully and really enjoy it? And when they say yes, I say, okay, so what did you do? Like, how did you make that work? Because often embedded in how they made that work is embedded how they could make things in their business work.
Right.
Well, one question I often ask couples is, would you like to be married to a personality clone of yourself?
Oh, ooh. Oh.
Most of the time, I get just exactly that response. And then I'll say, why not? And one woman summarized it beautifully. She said, well, if I was married to a clone of myself, I would have all my problems times 2.
Right.
But see, but here's the difference. We really don't want to be married to a clone of ourselves. That means we have to be married with someone who is different.
Right.
That means we have the start of some problems because they are different than we are.
Right.
So
and obviously business partner is the same. You don't want to be a business partner with your exact duplicate. You have to complement.
Unnecessary. Yeah. One of you is unnecessary.
There's an old saying that 12 clowns do not make a circus. You don't want everybody to have the same talent. And people unwittingly, unconsciously will hire somebody who is like themselves.
Right.
Which is why I could never hire an admin or a secretary, because I am horribly non-detailed oriented. I am a visionary, not attention to detail. So I will hire somebody who I really like the way they dream.
Right. And you're really needing somebody to manage you.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, he needs more than one person to manage him.
I know. We all do. Yeah.
We actually have a team of 6 people who work with us to help do all the other things that need to be done, or we go crazy trying to do them all.
Right.
But it really frees me up to do what I am good at doing.
And that's the key is, whether it's an employee, a spouse, or whoever, is we have our unique skills and talents. So what do we need to do to fully optimize that?
Bingo. Again, more discussion, more communication.
Right. Now, do you find that a lot of times business partners are equals? Or do you find that there's one who has a more leadership role? I was going to say dominant, but that wasn't, more of a leadership role. Now, dominant might be in there, but is it?
Yeah. It's really both. I mean, there's so many businesses now where one person started it and then they get to bring the other person home. And, clearly that person, it was their vision, it was their business to begin with. And then you're looking at how do you integrate that other person in and where are they equal and where are they not equal? And then you have the businesses where people started it together and they started it with the intention of being equal owners of it. So you have different dynamics depending on how the business got started, where they're taking it, all of those issues. So.
When Ellyn and I first, because we started the Couples Institute together. And I thought, at that time, I said, it's pretty cool. That now gives me a 50-50 chance of being Employee of the Month.
Oh, this is true.
Good thing you knew you were an employee.
I love it. Well, oh my gosh. gosh, we only have a couple minutes left. This has been so much fun. You know, and I think, you know, it is something that people really need to think about, you know, whether it's that you know, that their spouse is very integrated in the business, or maybe they just, you know, help out on occasion. You know, it's you know, making sure that that's clear. I mean, the one, you know, I can't emphasize it enough is, you know, the value. You know, even if it's just that maybe they help you with doing some mailings every once in a while. Did you say thank you? Did you say please? I mean, you know, all of those various things. And okay, yes, guilty, you know, as my husband would say.
Yes, we are.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I will put in a plug, because having done this work for a long time, those 6 things that I told you earlier, it's not that hard to get those right.
Right.
But it is hard. Many people ignore them.
Yeah.
And so when you ignore them, and then eventually over time, you kind of find your way and you figure it out. But why not take a look with somebody who knows what they're doing at where are where are the gaps, and where can we shore those up really quickly so that we can have a stronger foundation.
So here's a possibility for a listener, if they're interested in, which is Ellyn will do a 2-hour consultation about helping them identify their strengths, where they can collaborate more effectively, areas of weakness, and how to build in those 6 qualities. And she can give a pretty good overview in 2 hours.
Right.
About how they can collaborate and coordinate a lot more effectively.
Now, does it have to be in person, or can you use technology like we're doing?
Definitely. I can do it over Zoom or Skype.
Okay.
And, you know, sometimes people choose to come in for like a 2-day intensive, and I love doing those. But even that can be done on Skype or Zoom, but definitely the consult ideally would be done over Zoom.
Right. You know, and you do have a great program specifically designed for entrepreneur couples. So tell us just a little bit more about that.
Well, like I said, it is specifically designed for the entrepreneur's marriage. And so that can be definitely for couples who work together, but those where the entrepreneur's business has kind of taken over their lives too. And the beginning of that program is the consult that Pete just described. And then it is a 2-day intensive. It is a 2-day intensive. And that 2-day intensive is designed to go through in a prioritized order, which of those things need the most help. And then getting them shored up and doing that. And then couple goes off, does their thing, comes back for periodic check-ins or to improve a different area if they want to do that. So it's like I said, it's pretty specifically designed for the entrepreneur. Right.
Now, tell us just a little bit more about some of the other services that you provide.
The Couples Institute is a premier training institute for people who work with couples all over the world. So we do training for mental health professionals, for coaches, for people who are really in the trenches working with people's marriage. So we have an online training program that we run for that. We have a number of books that we've written, audios and things that we've done that can be found at couplesinstitute.com.
Cool.
But we also are putting together a special page for your listeners.
Yay.
Called couplesinstitute.com/business power hour.
I got to write that down. Business power hour. Okay.
And there is an article on that page about the 6 steps that we've been talking about today. And it gives people a way to really self-evaluate, look at them and see which things they feel like they're strong at, where they might want some help. So that's there.
Great.
And,
well, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, and I encourage everyone to check that out. You know, even if you're not currently working with your spouse, you might someday, you know, so it's probably a good idea to figure out from the very start, is this going to work, or is this going to be a total disaster? But most importantly, you want to lay that groundwork. You know, you want to go into it the correct way, as opposed to having to fix it later. You know, and so, yeah, if you're not working with your partner, you know, look at it, take a look and see. And you might go, oh, no, no. But, you know, more than likely you're going to think, you know, this is good. And And, hopefully you're also going to find things to help you in your marriage.
Well, I was going to say one of the things we didn't get into today is the 3 decision-making strategies that we teach. And those are for any couple. I mean, married, any couple. You don't have to be a business,
or not.
But I would say 95% of the couples who learn that say it has saved them an enormous amount of stress.
Oh, we have to have you on again then so we can talk about that. and it's as we said, it comes all the way back to communication. If you're not communicating with that other person in an effective way, and so we're not saying sarcasm, we're not saying berating, it's an effective communication, then it's not going to work. And whether you're a business partner, whether you're just a partner in the marriage, communication is absolutely the most important thing.
Yep.
Great.
All right.
Well, again, Ellyn and Pete, fabulous time. Tell us how they find you and connect you online.
So www.couplesinstitute.com is our main website. There's all kinds of wonderful articles on there for people to read if they want to, just about marriage and about your relationship.
Great.
And there's a special page for your listeners.
Perfect. And we'll put that in the show notes, and so that way people can find that. Well, this really has been so much fun, and I'm hoping very beneficial to people, especially if they are working with their spouse, if they're considering it, because there are so many things to consider. It's not just, oh, hey, you'd make a great business partner. Really sit down and think about things like this, because it is, whether you like it, it is a 24-hour thing. Even if you set boundaries, if you take your personal time, your quiet time, your away time, whatever it is, it's going to be there all the time. So make sure that it's what you want it to be or not. I mean, sometimes it's going to be, nope, this is not going to work. And that's, there's nothing wrong with that. But, hopefully it won't have destroyed your marriage in the process, because that is what's the most important thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I've been having a wonderful time talking with Dr. Ellyn Bader and Dr. Peter Pearson. I am Deb Creer. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.